Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Kelly from Lewis Creek Association, and we have another grant this year from Lake Champlain Basin Program to coordinate aquatic invasive species, both removal and boat launch steward efforts at Bristol Pond and Monkton Pond. And so I'm going to turn it over briefly to Matt Gorton, who's our coordinator, and he can tell us a little more about what's going to be happening there this summer.
Hello, my name is Matt Gorton, and I was contracted by Lewis Creek Association to oversee their boat launch steward program. We started this program 2 years ago at Bristol Pond, and due to the success of the program, we expanded it to Monkton Pond last summer. In this brief presentation, I'll give a brief overview of what aquatic invasive species are, some of the details about our program, and what our stewards do. So aquatic invasive species are non-native and cause damage to the environment, the economy, or human health. The Lake Champlain Basin has around 51 non-native species, and around 12 of those non-native species are invasive. Aquatic invasive species can choke out waterways, killing off other species and preventing waterfowl from landing. This photo is some water chestnut mats in the southern portion of Lake Champlain. And aquatic invasive species can also cause damage to infrastructure, leading to millions of dollars in repairs. And this is just a photo of zebra mussels blocking a pipe. And then lastly, aquatic invasive species often prevent recreational activities such as swimming, fishing, and boating. So I'm just going to discuss briefly what species we have at Bristol and Monkton Ponds. So we have European frogbit, which is found at Bristol Pond. It is native to Europe and Asia and was introduced to North America via Canada in the 1930s. And frogbit forms these thick mats in still to slow-moving water. And unfortunately, these mats decrease water oxygen and light levels, killing off native plants and animals and negatively impacting waterfowl and fish feeding, as well as their movement. And they also ensnare boat props, making boating difficult and sometimes impossible. And as I said, this is only found at Bristol Pond and not Monkton Pond. Then we have Eurasian water milfoil, which is native to Europe, Africa, and Asia, and was introduced to North America via Chesapeake Bay in the late 1800s. And Eurasian water milfoil also forms thick mats and still to slow-moving water up to 20 feet deep. And these mats decrease water oxygen and light levels, killing native plants and animals. Also, it negatively impacts fish feeding and movement, as well as spawning. And as before, like with the frogbit, it also ensnares boat props, making boating difficult. And this is found at both ponds. Then we have curly leaf pondweed, which is native to Europe, Africa, Australia, and Asia. And it was introduced to North America in the 1860s in California. This plant forms thick mats as well in slow-moving water up to 13 feet deep. And it starts growing earlier in the spring than other plants, which allows them to outcompete native plants. And as before, this also forms dense mats that impede fish movement and boating. And this is found at Monkton Pond, but not Bristol Pond. And lastly, we have brittle naiad, which was found last year at Bristol Pond for the first time. It is native to Europe and Asia. It forms dense mats in still moving water up to 13 feet. And these dense mats decrease oxygen levels in the water. And brittle naiad also grows earlier than other plants, which allows it to block sunlight from getting to native plants. And it also negatively impacts fish and waterfowl movement, as well as recreational boating and fishing. And in Bristol Pond, this is primarily found right next to the dock, but I suspect that it has probably moved a little bit further away from the dock in the channel. So brittle naiad is rooted and a submerged plant that is bushy in appearance. Its coloration varies from green to green-brown. And as you can see, the leaves are thick and stiff with serrated edges and pointed tips. And their leaves also curve downward and grow in pairs that are oppositely arranged along the stem at nodes. So you may be asking yourself, how can we prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species? Well, the most effective way to combat them is to prevent their spread to other bodies of water. Therefore, always remember to clean, drain, and dry your boat, equipment, shoes, and life jackets when you leave any body of water. And always make sure to be expecting any of the parts of your trailer or boat that can grab onto these invasive plants. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about our program and what our boat launch stewards do. And so yeah, our boat launch stewards will typically be at the ponds Fridays through Sunday between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. However, this may vary depending on weather or just some random variation when we would like to check how invasive species may be moving at different times during the week. And while performing their duties, the boat launch steward will record the watercraft type, the group size, the state of registration, if the visitor was launching or retrieving their watercraft, the time of inspection, if the boater had any previous contact with the boat launch steward, if the visitor accepted or refused the inspection, if the visitor took any aquatic invasive species spread prevention steps, what species were found on the watercraft, the last water body visited 2 weeks prior to the inspection, and what water body the visitor would go to next. The stewards will also remove any vegetation that they find. However, the main purpose is to educate the public so they're able to do these inspections by themselves and for them to understand the potential implications if they knowingly or unknowingly transport aquatic organisms. So currently our program is funded by NEOPIC and Lake Champlain Basin Program. Hopefully this money will be available for years to come. However, in the future, our funding could potentially be no longer available. So our program will only be sustainable in the long term if we have volunteer support. So we're hoping to elicit help from volunteers who can shadow our stewards a few times a summer, which Kate will give you all the dates after I'm done talking. And then if volunteers do enjoy shadowing the stewards, then maybe we can potentially facilitate more days where volunteers could help out. So if you're interested in volunteering or know of anybody who is, please either contact me or Kate. And as I said before, this program wouldn't have been possible without the funding that was provided by NEOPIC in partnership with Lake Champlain Basin Program. And yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Matt. So yeah, I just wanted to touch briefly on the volunteer opportunities that Matt mentioned. So first of all, those shadow days that he mentioned, we'd like to open that to conservation commissions, but potentially other folks in the community too, who might be interested in learning more about, what the stewards do and potentially helping out some other days. So those shadow days that we have scheduled are for July 23rd, August 7th, and August 20th. So we will put that out in an email as well, but hopefully we can get some folks on those days to show up and just shadow the stewards and see how the whole program works. And then we do have another opportunity this summer as well that is part of this grant. So with the discovery of the brittle naiad at Bristol Pond, Vermont DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, would like to partner with us to help get some volunteers out there to remove as much brittle naiad as we can. They've offered to essentially train us on how to do that. They will bring some equipment with them, including some kayaks that can be used to remove frogbit as well from Bristol Pond. So we've set a couple of dates with them. The main date is July 25th, which is a Monday, from 2 to 6 p.m. To meet at the pond and, either get in the water or get on a boat and do some invasives removal. If that date gets rained out for some reason, or there's some other issue that comes up, we'll go instead with Friday, the 29th in the same time slot from 2 to 6 p.m. To do that brittle naiad and frogbit removal. You may want to consider if you would like to do that and you're interested in getting in the water and actually swimming or snorkeling to remove brittle naiad, you may want to consider bringing some long clothes to swim in. Apparently there are some leeches at Bristol Pond. So you may want to be covered up so that you can still swim well, but protect your skin from leeches. And, otherwise you would just need to bring your, shoes that you can get muddy, your sunscreen and hat, again, swimsuit and snorkel gear if you want to do that. Otherwise, just be prepared to get out on a boat and sort of rake some frogbit up off the surface of Bristol Pond as best we can. So we will send all that information out via email with this recording as well for further info to share. And please feel free to spread the word. We'll be doing newsletter updates with all this information as well. So if you're on our LCA newsletter list. You can get info that way. And hopefully we will see many of you out at Bristol Pond or at Monkton Pond this summer.